Now let's talk about the concept of note values. And note values are really just the duration of notes, or how long each note lasts. Now let's look at the most basic note value, which is a whole note. I'll show it here with the sort of standard staff, and you'll see the whole note as just an empty circle. Whoops, there we go. Whole note is the empty circle, and that means that it lasts 4 beats. That's what a whole note means. And if you remember, the most common time signature is 4/4, and so with that, with the 4-beat whole note, that means it lasts 1 full measure, hence the name whole note. So now that we have that, let's look at all the other notes available to us. We have, as I said, the whole note, which is 4 beats. Then we have the half note, which is a whole note. It kind of looks like the whole note to begin with, but all you're doing is you're adding this little line above it, and that line is called a stem, whereas this little circle is called the head. Okay, so you take the head and you add the stem, and you make that the half note. To keep going with this, to get to the quarter note, we take what looks like the half note, but instead of an empty head, we have a full sort of filled in head. And so you see this thing is a little bit different, and that gives us a quarter note, which is 1 beat. Now to go from quarter note to an eighth note, which is half of the note value, you just add a little, what we call a flag, to a quarter note. Oops. And that is the eighth note, and that translates to a half a beat. And if you wanted to go any further than this, you can add another flag to the same thing. So you now have your 16th note, which is a quarter of a beat. And basically you can just keep going to infinity. You can just keep adding stems, to make 30-second notes and even smaller notes. Okay, so once you get to the eighth note, it's simply a matter of adding adding flags to get smaller and smaller. Now the other concept to take note of is the dot. Now we had the whole note, which was 4 beats. We had the half note, which is 2 beats. So how do we get to a note that's 3 beats? Well, all you have to do is you take the half note, what we have here, and you just add a dot to it. And what that does is it takes the original note value, which is 2 beats, and it adds half of the original note value. And half of 2 is 1. So that gives you 3 beats. Okay, so this dotted half note, I'll write this down here. This is called a dotted half note. Is gotten from adding the original note value, which is 2, to half of that, which is 1, which gives you 3. Okay, so you can you can apply this concept to other notes, like if you have a quarter note and you dot that, that gives you the 1 beat plus half, which is half of 1, which gives you 1.5. Okay? Now let's put this all together into a time signature and into each measure, where all you're doing when you're writing music is making sure that everything adds up to the top number, in this case 4. So if you're in 4/4 time, you want to make sure that all the note values inside a single measure adds up to 4. So you have a half note and 2 quarter notes, and the note values here are 2 plus 1 plus 1, which gives you 4. So that makes sense, and that's correct. Whereas if you had another measure with just 3 quarter notes, then that would add up to 1 plus 1 plus 1, which is 3, which does not work. So just as an exercise, I'm going to actually play along to this. I'm going to play one sort of constant tone, but I'm going to play each of these notes in time, and I'm going to play along to snapping, which will tell you the number of beats. And I'm going to play the notes where the first note is 2 beats, the second note is 1 beat, and the third note is 1 beat. Okay, so you notice that the first beat lasted 2 beats, the second note lasted 1 beat, the third note lasted 1 beat, and it, as I repeated it, it added up to 4. Now, the beauty of rhythms and the beauty of sort of music and composing in general is the ability to switch this up and kind of vary the rhythm as you go along. So you can have, you can start with this, but you can have 4 quarter notes in a measure. You can have, dotted quarter with eighth note and maybe a half note. And you can sort of vary this around and play different rhythms. And that really sort of gives you the variety and kind of interestingness of a particular song.